In the darkest corners of American true crime, one name continues to haunt history: Jeffrey Dahmer, a man whose crimes shook the world, and whose secrets still remain hidden beneath decades of analysis. Today, we peel back the layers. Not the dramatized versions, not the sensational headlines, but the untold truth. The details many have never heard, and a chilling portrait of a mind unraveling in silence. Our story begins in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a place where nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Yet behind one boy's calm exterior, a disturbing fascination was quietly taking shape. Dahmer showed early signs of emotional detachment. He collected dead animals out of curiosity. But this was not a harmless hobby. It was a window into a mind unable to separate curiosity from obsession. Teachers noticed something off. Classmates saw his strange behavior. But in an era with limited psychological awareness, these signs were dismissed. This silence would become deadly. As Dahmer grew older, his loneliness deepened. Alcohol became his escape. It masked the disturbing thoughts he couldn't silence. His internal world was collapsing. But externally, he remained unnoticed. In 1978, a single impulsive act changed everything. Dahmer committed his first murder. In that moment, something awakened inside him, a compulsion he could no longer control, a darkness that would soon spiral into a pattern of horror. What makes Dahmer's case so disturbing is not just the nature of his crimes, but how quietly he operated, how easily society looked past him. He blended into the background. His quiet demeanor disarmed suspicion. His politeness masked a hidden world of violence, and that deception is one of the most untold truths of this story. Dahmer was not chaotic. He was calculated. He created routines, rituals, patterns. He built an internal world of total control. His apartment became a sealed environment, a private chamber of nightmares. And yet, the outside world never saw the signs. One of the most chilling details rarely mentioned is how close Dahmer came to being caught multiple times. Neighbors complained about strange smells. They heard unsettling noises. They sensed that something was very wrong. But their concerns were brushed aside. Just spoiled meat, Dahmer would say. And authorities believed him. Perhaps the greatest missed opportunity occurred in 1991 when a young boy escaped from Dahmer's apartment. He stumbled into the street, drugged, terrified, desperate. Two women called the police. Officers arrived, and Dahmer followed shortly after. Calm, polite, soft-spoken. He convinced the officers that the boy was his partner, that it was a lover's dispute. The officers accepted his story without question, and they returned the boy back to Dahmer's apartment. Minutes later, the boy was dead. This moment remains one of the most tragic failures in law enforcement history and one of the darkest untold details of this case. Dahmer's victims were targeted with precision. He preyed on vulnerability, on trust, on communities often overlooked by society. These choices allowed him to operate longer than most serial killers, and it highlights the systemic neglect of marginalized groups. Inside his apartment, investigators later uncovered evidence almost unimaginable: photographs documenting his crimes, personal items kept as trophies, diagrams, tools, sketches of what he called a perfect shrine, a chilling symbol of total control. Psychological experts say these items tell a deeper story, one of ritualistic obsession, a mind trying to stabilize itself through patterns. Dahmer wasn't impulsive, he was deliberate. Each crime followed a structure, a method, a repeated cycle fueled by loneliness and fear. What many documentaries fail to mention is that Dahmer was fully aware of his actions. He understood the consequences. He understood the pain he caused. And yet, he continued. Not out of rage, but out of a psychological dependency. His crimes became a desperate attempt to keep someone close, even if it meant trapping them forever. This need for control shaped every part of his life. In interviews, Dahmer spoke with unsettling calm. He recalled his actions in detail, with precision, without emotional reaction. But psychologists noticed something deeper. He carried a constant fear of abandonment, a fear that dominated his internal world. Every attempt to keep someone was rooted in that terror, and that truth is rarely discussed. Dahmer wasn't seeking chaos, he was seeking permanence, a twisted, horrific version of connection. When detectives finally entered his apartment, they found evidence that shocked the world. But they also found journals, notes, drawings, documents that revealed a mind aware of its own collapse. These materials expose an untold truth. Dahmer didn't want to stop, but he didn't want to continue either. He lived in a psychological contradiction, trapped between compulsion and guilt. This internal conflict is one of the case's darkest layers, and one rarely mentioned in mainstream coverage. When Dahmer was finally arrested in 1991, he didn't resist. He simply said, "For what I did, I should be dead." Investigators described him as calm, almost relieved, as if the end of his crimes was also the end of his burden. In prison, Dahmer's behavior stunned officials. He expressed remorse, he questioned his own psychology, he sought spiritual answers. But experts argue his remorse came too late, and could never undo the devastation he caused. Still, his calmness continued to confuse the world. How could someone so quiet commit acts so violent? The answer lies in the complexity of his psyche. Dahmer lived two lives. One visible, one hidden. The visible life was ordinary, forgettable, polite. The hidden life was horrifying, controlled, ritualistic, and driven by fear. His story is not just a record of crimes, but a reflection of societal failure. A failure to see warning signs, a failure to listen to vulnerable communities, a failure to believe victims, and a failure to question the quiet neighbor no one worried about. Dahmer's crimes were horrific, but the conditions that allowed them to continue are equally disturbing. These are the details often left untold, the details that reveal how preventable this tragedy was. Today, criminologists continue to study Dahmer's mind, not to sensationalize him, but to understand how such darkness develops, because cases like this don't emerge out of nowhere. They grow slowly, quietly in the shadows of neglect. Dahmer's case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about mental health, about isolation, about the consequences of ignoring warning signs, and about the systems that fail to protect the vulnerable. As the years pass, new details continue to emerge: letters, interviews, unreleased police reports, each one revealing another layer, another overlooked clue, another missed sign, and another reminder of how close the world came to stopping him sooner. Jeffrey Dahmer's story is more than a crime chronicle. It is a lesson etched into the darkest pages of history. A lesson about awareness, about accountability, and about the dangers of silence. These are the untold details, the hidden truths, the shadows behind the infamous name, and the part of the story most people never hear. Today, we bring them to light, to understand, to remember, and to ensure such darkness is never ignored again.